Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Pro Wrestling Spotlight. My name is Alex Robertson. I'm again filling in for John Arezzi this week. He will be back next week, though. But for now, you just have me. I have quite a show lined up for you guys. I'm very excited, very excited. I have one of my contributors from Slam who will be joining me to talk about an article that actually came out today with Slam about one of pro wrestling's favorite managers. Very excited about that. And I also have a friend who's going to be joining me. She's been on this podcast before. We loved her the last time. It was actually the first time that John and I got to kind of do an interview together. So it was very interesting. And it was actually something that I saw a little over 2 weeks ago that started to make me think about bringing her on the podcast and talking about it, because I know that I'm very passionate about this subject. But we'll introduce her a little later on. I hope all of you are doing very well this week. Another hard week of getting through this pandemic, but I hope all of you are staying safe. I hope any of my fans listening into the States, I hope that if you were able to get the vaccine, that you do, and that you keep your friends and family safe at this time. So without further ado, I'm going to start off the show as I normally do, giving you the news, giving you the updates from the week. It was kind of a bigger week in news. Nothing too crazy, but of course, WrestleMania is coming up. We do have a couple of pay-per-views this weekend, so I'm going to be talking about those a little bit. And we did have some WWE Hall of Fame announcement news, so let's get started. So the first thing I want to talk about is Fastlane, which is happening tomorrow night. It is the last pay-per-view on the road to WrestleMania. And if you ask me, I think it's a pay-per-view that's not necessarily needed, but we'll see what you guys let me know what you think. I know that this is, something that's not completely getting me going. I'd rather just, wait a couple another more weeks until we get to WrestleMania. But in any case, I think it's important to talk about the card. And look, John is watching us from West Palm Beach. Thank you for tuning in, John. Appreciate that. Okay, so Fastlane. We have 7 matches on the card. So it's actually a decent card. Normally, when it's not a huge pay-per-view with the WWE, we don't see 7 matches on the card. But I think that's a decent amount. But if I'm being honest, they're matches that I don't know that I'm very excited about. The first one that I'm looking at here is Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler, who are the women's tag team champions, will be going up against Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair. And of course, Reginald has to be involved. Whether or not he's going to interfere, who knows? But he will be there nonetheless. So we're going to have that match. We're also going to have Roman Reigns, of course, with Paul Heyman at his side, and Daniel Bryan in a singles match for the WWE Universal Championship. Now, you'll remember a couple of, actually it was the last pay-per-view at Elimination Chamber, Daniel Bryan was actually the one to win a chance to go up against Roman Reigns. And of course, what does Roman Reigns do immediately once Daniel Bryan wins the match? He doesn't have a second to breathe, to get some water, anything like that. We get right to the match, and of course, he loses. So I'm guessing that this is going to be a rematch of that. We'll see what turns out there. Another match that we're looking at is Alexa Bliss versus Randy Orton. Now, this is something that I was going to talk about a little bit later on in the show. So I'm gonna leave my opinion until then, but I think it's kind of interesting that we haven't seen a lot of intergender matches, especially one-on-one matches. It's quite something else to have an intergender match when it's a tag team match, but we haven't seen too many of those recently. So who knows? Maybe we're looking at The Fiend coming back. Maybe he's going to reincarnate into himself and Alexa Bliss is going to disappear for a little while or go back into another storyline. There's so many possibilities there. But again, we'll leave that till later. And then, of course, we have Drew McIntyre and Sheamus in a no-holds-barred match. Now, this is a match that I'm actually kind of looking forward to seeing. they're two very good wrestlers. They always have been. They've been in the WWE for a long time. We've seen this matchup before, don't get me wrong. But I think if there's any match on this card that we're looking forward to, it should be that one. And what I did find interesting is that Braun Strowman was actually supposed to have a match with Shane McMahon. They were promoting the hell out of it for the last 2 weeks. And then all of a sudden, it got taken off the card. Wonder why? I don't think it was anything that anybody would have wanted to see anyway. I mean, yes, they're two good characters within reason, but I don't think that we need to see another matchup like that. That's for sure. And another match that we have here is Matt Riddle versus Mustafa Ali in a singles match for the United States Championship. Now, again, not necessarily something that the WWE has hyped up all that much, but who knows, right? So that's basically the card that we have for that, for them. Again, nothing too extravagant. I would have much rather them just hold everything off and tease everything they have getting ready for WrestleMania, because I was taking a look at what was going on there this week. What do we have coming up for WrestleMania? And it was interesting because I think I told you guys last week that the tickets for WrestleMania were going to be on sale. Now, they canceled that, and then they actually went on sale yesterday. And I think the reason why they canceled it to start off is because they were trying to prepare extra safety precautions, if I'm not mistaken, and they have put them into place. I looked everywhere trying to see, what kind of protocol that they're currently doing. And, they're doing the whole temperature checks. They're spacing everybody out. So my understanding is that it's not going to be to full capacity, which is a good idea to begin with. But nonetheless, they are selling tickets. They're selling them in packages, and they actually give you a pre-sale code if you're looking to buy them. So, I mean, if that's what you want to do, if you're going to be in Tampa or you're planning to go to Tampa, I mean, have at it. Especially if you're one of the people that in the States that's already gotten their vaccine, more power to you. Let me know how it goes. But I don't know that I would have been in line for that one. That's for sure. And we also saw this week, keeping in theme with WrestleMania, that it's going to be hosted by Hulk Hogan and Titus O'Neil. Now, I don't really know how this is going to work. I don't know I know WrestleMania is over 2 days. So I don't know if that means that one day we're going to get Hulk Hogan, one day we're going to get Titus O'Neil. I don't know. All I know is that we've seen Hulk Hogan do this before. We know that he can promo the hell out of anything. So we know that he's going to be a great host. Titus O'Neil, I actually got to interview him for his book when it came out at the radio station here when I was working for TSN 690, which is a sports station here in Canada. And he is so well-spoken. He's so passionate about the business. So I'm very excited and very much looking forward to both of them co-hosting. So that's going to be interesting. The other thing that we're not too clear on, though, with WrestleMania is what the theme is going to be. I've heard, some things in the making. They're trying to keep it kind of secretive. But I know that Kevin Owens actually went out of his way to give a shout out to all of those people behind the scenes, all of the creative team behind the scenes that put that show together. And that's pretty awesome, because we don't always think about that, right? We don't always think about the creative team that puts these shows together. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And I'm seeing some of you on here are actually talking about the COVID outbreak at NXT. Yes, that did happen. If I'm not mistaken, that was reported last week. There hasn't really been any news as to specific names that came out that tested positive. We don't know if it's specifically to the talent. We don't know if it was a group of writers. We're not too sure. All I know is that they didn't stop doing their tapings. They haven't stopped doing their shows. So, I mean, I'll try and keep you guys updated as best as possible. But for now, all I know is that, yes, there has been a COVID outbreak, but it has not affected any of their shows. That's for sure. Getting back to WrestleMania, I told you guys last week that they did announce their first inductee for the Hall of Fame 2021, and it was Molly Holly, which is amazing. And they announced another one this week, WCW's Eric Bischoff. Now, I think that's probably going to get some mixed reactions. I know the last couple times that Eric has made appearances on AEW, whenever Chris Jericho was doing some sort of promo for an upcoming pay-per-view, we know that he was involved, and every time he comes out, he gets booed. I mean, say what you want about him. He is, in his own way, a legend in the business. So congratulations to him on being named one of the inductees for the 2021 Hall of Fame. We'll see if he gets booed as much as he did last time. And again, if any of them come out with over the next couple of weeks, which I'm sure next week there's going to be more names that are going to be announced, I will be sure to be on top of that for all of you. And another thing that I wanted to announce, oh yes, about the Hall of Fame. They initially weren't sure if it was going to air live or they were going to pre-tape it. And I have a feeling that the reason that what they wanted to pre-tape it was because of the pandemic, and they wanted to limit the amount of people that were in the building. But now I'm understanding that the ceremony will be aired live with virtual fans in attendance from the Thunderdome. So I guess what that means is that what you're seeing on SmackDown, what you're seeing on Raw in terms of how fans get to participate in the show by being on the screens, I'm guessing that's what we're going to see. Although I think if there's anybody in attendance, it's probably going to be the wrestlers themselves. So I'm guessing that's how that's going to go. I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens there. Another thing that I saw this week that's not necessarily WWE related, but I did tell you guys about this a couple of weeks ago. Kylie Ray, who kind of took a sabbatical a little bit because she was having some mental health issues and she wanted to take some time away from the ring to get better. Well, she's back. She will be wrestling in an upcoming Warriors match, if I'm not mistaken, Warrior wrestling match. She's announced that she will be back to defend her title on Saturday, June 5th in Chicago. So that's nice to hear that she's finally making her way back. And it's always nice to see people get back to their passions, right? And some maybe not so exciting news that I saw and was kind of surprised about was this news about Charlie Caruso, who is a backstage interviewer for the WWE, and she also does some spots on ESPN. Now, I don't know if you guys saw this story. I know it really only came out from Fightful Select, but she's been reported that she's been taken off of TV. And I've noticed the last couple of weeks that she hasn't been on TV all that much. And from what I understand, it's because she's getting the reputation of being late to interviews, late interviewing superstars, which is why she hasn't been on television, which is actually kind of sad because, no offense, but you really have one job. I don't know how you can be late for something like that. And I don't know if these rumors are true. The WWE has most definitely not come out and said anything about this, but I think that's very surprising. I know that more and more throughout the years, we're hearing more stuff come out about backstage interviewers, about romances gone wrong. So this could very, very well be a rumor. I really hope it is because I do really like seeing Charlie on TV. I think she's a great addition to their broadcasting staff. So I don't know, something to kind of look out for, but it was one particular article that I read and it kind of spun out everywhere. And I saw it all over Twitter. I saw it all over Facebook. It could be clickbait. I don't know. But just from what I'm seeing from everyone tweeting about it and talking about it, who knows? So that's basically everything that happened this week. Actually, there's one other thing that I wanted to mention because a few of you did mention it to me the last time I had my talk with John about NWA and how NWA was bringing back Power. So they actually have a pay-per-view this weekend as well. They have a pay-per-view tomorrow, and it actually kicks off their Power episodes, which is kind of cool. And I'm hoping this is going to be something that we're going to keep seeing, because I did also hear rumors that they might be just canceling their shows altogether, which of course is terrible for wrestling. But I mean, I'm hoping with this pay-per-view that this means that they're going to kickstart things up again. And one thing that I did notice was that Thunder Rosa was going to be in a match against Camille. Now, I don't know if you've seen Camille ever wrestle before, but she's very much like Thunder Rosa. So that match should be incredible. And it's going to determine the number one contender for the NWA World Women's Championship, which of course is currently held by Serena Deeb. So that's very interesting. We also see Nick Aldis, who is the current champion, who's going to go up against Aaron Stevens for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. And I'm seeing here that some of you are asking about where that the power tapings and episodes can be seen. Yes, from what I understand, they will be on YouTube. That is always how I've viewed them. So I'm assuming that's where they're going to be as well. Let me see other matches. We have Elijah Burke, who is also the NWA World Television Champion, will be going up against Tom Latimer for a singles match. So, I mean, there's 6 matches on the card. Those are the ones that stood out to me. I know that a lot of you were asking me about it. So I guess that means that you guys are watching it. I know I pay attention to it too. It's definitely one of the promotions that I keep my eye on, especially with this crossover that they've been having in the women's division with AEW. So that's kind of exciting. So if you guys want to watch that, it's going to be on their YouTube channel as well. And Billy is asking me, hey, Alex, don't know if you said this or not, but Rich Swann is the unified champion, beating Moose last Saturday at Sacrifice. Yes, he is. And I let me know what you guys thought of that pay-per-view as well. I know I checked it out. I was really, like I said last weekend, I was really interested in that particular match and the women's matches to see if there was going to be a turning of the tide per se. But as we know, Jordynne Grace is still the Knockouts champion. She defeated ODB. And we know that the tag team titles also for the women also did not change hands. But congratulations to Rich Swann for being the Unified Impact champion. So another thing that I wanted to mention just before I can see that Don Liable, who is going to come on and talk to us about his recent article that came out today, I can see that he's trying to connect with us. So I'm going to wait a little bit before I bring him on. But yes, Deonna, and I'm seeing more of you telling me about Deonna and her being the women's champion. Definitely. I think that it was a smart move that they didn't change the titles. I think that she is a great champion. She's great Knockouts champion, and she definitely brings the heat. So congratulations to her. And speaking of women's wrestling, a very proud moment for me. And I'm sure that if anybody who is an avid fan of women's wrestling or who is a female wrestler would be able to be saying that they feel the same way as I do, is I don't know if you guys checked out AEW Dynamite this week, but Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker, let me tell you, those two, I've never seen a women's match, modern day anyway, that has been that hardcore ever. I knew that somebody like Thunder Rosa would definitely be up for a hardcore match. But when it came to Britt Baker, I wasn't sure, not that she wasn't ready, but that it wasn't her style. And she definitely proved that not only will she take the challenge, but she will rise to the occasion. It was an insane match. I am so happy that not only was that their main event match, but they even thought about putting that together. And when I was telling all of you last week about how disappointed I was in the Women's World Eliminator Tournament that they had on their pay-per-view, that is the kind of stuff that we should have been seeing on that pay-per-view. That is the kind of work and the kind of talent that they need to be showcasing. I don't necessarily think that anybody thought that women can't do hardcore matches. And if that's how you feel, I mean, I think this just goes to show you that that's not true, that women can basically do any kind of match, no matter what's involved. And I know that everybody was talking about it. I know Dave Meltzer, who gives his ratings on matches, of course, he gave them a 4.75 out of 5 on that match. But I mean, how could you not, right? I really hope that in the future we start to see a little bit more of it, maybe not every week, but I think we need to start seeing more of it so they could solidify themselves and say, hey, we do have a women's division. We do have very talented wrestlers, and we need to be showing the world what we can do. So I give them a lot of credit, you know, especially Britt Baker with the blood coming down from her face. I mean, you can tell that she was in pain, especially when she went through those tacks. They took out tacks, guys. They took tacks out of a bag and put them on the mat, and she got slammed through some tacks. You're not going to tell me that that doesn't hurt. That was crazy. And Steve is telling me Thunder Rosa was already over with me, but I give Britt Baker a lot of credit for someone that hasn't been in the business that long. She definitely got over with me after that match. 100%. I think from the moment she got on TV, we could tell that she was a little green, as a lot of them were, because they didn't have that TV exposure. But over the course of the last 2 years, I've really seen her come into her own, and she's a natural born heel. And I think, as some of you are saying, that should build a feud, I think that should definitely build their feud. I think they had something before and then they kind of let it fizzle out. But if this is their way of bringing it back, let's see it. Bring it on, ladies and gentlemen. This is something that I want to see. Okay, so I want to get to my next segment. I'm going to see if Don is ready and able to connect. It still looks like he's having trouble connecting with us, so I'll just wait a little bit longer. However, what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce you to the article that he wrote, because I know when my editor, Greg Oliver at Slam, told me that this article was coming out, I was really excited, because as I've been telling you guys over the last couple of weeks, I've been watching a lot of old school wrestling. And one thing that I love and that we don't have very much of anymore are the classic managers, the classy Freddie Blassie, the Elizabeth, the Bobby the Brain Heenan, the Jimmy Harts. You know, we don't have those anymore. And they played such an integral role in telling a story. They were amazing. I always had fun watching each and every one of them. Although if I'm being honest, I'm pretty sure I can say that Elizabeth was definitely my favorite one. And only because Macho Man was also one of my favorite wrestlers. But we don't see those all the time anymore. So it's kind of fun to reminisce and go back and watch some of those stuff. So if you guys have any favorite managers that you can remember, please let me know if I'm leaving any of them out. But one of the most beloved ones that I think we can all say is a legend, and he clearly is because he was inducted into the Hall of Fame, is Captain Lou Albano. And if I know at first when I saw him, I asked myself, why does he have elastic bands on his face, in his beard? I just thought that was the weirdest thing. But then I started watching him over the course of, you know, his career, and he was amazing. He represented so many wrestlers over the course of the last few years of his career. Yet somebody is also letting me know about JJ Dillon. Yes, and the Four Horsemen, who we also saw on AEW not that long ago. So yeah, there's been a lot of them, but I think Captain Lou Albano was one of the ones that sticks out for a lot of people. I know I was just watching the Hall of Fames, like I told you guys a couple of weeks ago, and I saw his induction speech, and he seemed to have a very funny personality, a very outgoing guy. I mean, how could you not? So I really want to have Don on to come and tell us about this article, because he actually got to speak to Captain Lou Albano's son, Carl. And I know that he had a lot of fun writing that article. I read it a couple days ago. You guys can go and read it on slam.net. It should be right there on our homepage. But I know this was something that was really fun for Don to write. He has a lot of memories about Captain Lou Albano. And they actually, in the article, go into what he was like as a father. And that's also something that we don't see a lot of over the course of their career, because we only ever get to see their in-ring performances. But he did have a family, and he does have a lot of history in his hometown. So I'm just going to wait for Don a little bit longer to log on and join us. And for now, I'm going to keep reading some of your messages here. Billy says, the Grand Wizard of Wrestling was my favorite. Definitely. I completely forgot about him. Absolutely. But yes, I think that's definitely something that they should bring back. I don't know, what would you think? Do you think it would actually make the WWE a little bit more interesting if they brought managers back? I mean, the last great one that I can remember, the loudest one that I can remember, is Vicky Guerrero. I was telling my boyfriend before, I sometimes can't even, I have to turn down her podcast whenever I listen to it, because that's how she starts off, screaming, excuse me. And that's forever what she's going to be remembered for. And I think that she as well had a very long career in the WWE, and now she's with AEW, kind of doing the same thing. So that's also something that I didn't think of. So Don's having a little bit of trouble here connecting with us. Seems his network is kind of off. So I'll go into the article a little bit more if you want. But yes, I was very interested in reading about this. It was very similar to the article he wrote on Paul the Butcher Vachon, who you guys know that those were they're from Quebec. This is exactly where I'm from. So that was also something that was very interesting for me. So I was very excited to read about, another memory, because I think a lot of times for us writers, the best stories to write about is something that you're passionate about and something that you grew up watching. So I know that one day I would like to get to interview, and if Greg, if you're watching, keep this a note. I would love to interview some of my favorite wrestlers, some of my heroes that I would say grew up watching. I mean, I started watching wrestling about 6 years ago, but I still have some people in mind that I would love to interview. I'd love to interview somebody like Renee Paquette, Renee Young. She does exactly what I strive to do with you guys and in the future. So definitely somebody that I would want to speak to. And let me know if is there somebody that you would want to meet if you haven't already. Is there a wrestler that you want to meet that you've always wanted to meet because you watched them since you were a child? And Steve is also telling me Paul Heyman is a good manager, but they should definitely be brought back. Yeah, definitely Paul Heyman. He is everybody's voice, he's Roman Reigns' voice right now. So yes, there's a lot of them that we could bring up, but unfortunately, Don cannot join me. He's having a little bit of difficulty connecting with me here. So I'm going to move on to our next segment, which I'm very, very excited about. I was so happy that when I reached out to her, she said yes, and she was happy to give me some time today. I'm going to bring on Jeannie Basone onto the podcast. A lot of you know her. She is good friends with John. If I'm not mistaken, they're actually neighbors in Nashville. And I got to talk to her about a year or so ago about her soap line, and what was supposed to be an interview about her soap line turned into a chat about so many other things, including makeup and, of course, Glow, which is where most of you would know her from. And I am a huge fan of the show. I was a huge fan of the show back in the day, the one that they have on Netflix now, and of course, what they've done for women's wrestling. So without further ado, I am going to bring Jeannie on to the podcast. Hi, Jeannie.
Hello.
How are you?
Now I'm going to push that up. There we go. I'm great. How are you, sweetheart?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you? How has everything been going since we last spoke? How have you been doing during the pandemic?
You know what? Managing and doing actually exceptionally well. I'm healthy. All is good. Continue to travel. I have been from Tennessee to California and back, and I did that very cautiously and carefully. And of course, when I was going back and forth, of course, just going the rules you have to follow is, and you might have been talking about it, but testing regularly all the time. Yeah, because if I wanted to work with somebody or visit my folks, I wanted to be safe. So yeah, all great, really good.
Good. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Where are you currently? Are you in Nashville or are you in LA?
I'm in Nashville today. Anyone knows what this is? My office back here. But yeah, in Nashville, and I was in California 2 weeks ago, and then I'll be back again in April as well, and probably in May. But I'm well, and I'm busy. I made 2 soaps today. By the way.
That's awesome. Well, I know that like I was telling our viewers, that was definitely something that I wanted to talk to you about, even in our initial phone conversation, because that's what I wrote the article about. So I love your soaps, are gorgeous. I mean, I can't smell them obviously, but they look gorgeous. Every time I see the ones that you do with the skulls, because I love skulls. And I think they're beautiful. Everything that you've done that I've ever seen is awesome. So tell me, how is the business going?
So when I talked to you a little while ago, I was doing this soap as like a hobby and making it for me and some of my friends. And then it just took off because of this pandemic that happened. And so I have been so busy. I've added 2 more stores. So I added Billy Corgan from NWA, Smashing Pumpkins. I have soaps at he has a tea shop in Chicago, and that's called Madame Zuzu's for anybody who goes, who might want to visit Billy's shop. Madame Zuzu's in Chicago. I think it's somewhere, I'm trying to remember the area. Highland Park. So close to the water there. So Highland Park. I added the lady from, do you guys remember Rhonda Shear from, you won't, Alec, because you're too young, but Rhonda Shear was a host on she would do USA Up All Night, and she hosted TV shows, kind of like Elvira, but not horror movies.
Okay.
So Rhonda has a shop in St. Pete, Florida, and I added my soap there. And then there was another company in Ventura, California called Jellyfish Boutique, and they're also on they're on the water, and they wanted mermaids a lot. I don't know if you could see these. The sun is starting to come in, but these mermaids, and they wanted mermaids for their shop. Oh, they smell so good. So I have been busy. I made 60 for their store, and then today I made another 36 for a friend's store. Not store, but his business. He plays in a band called Skid Row. So I do a lot of Rachel's. He does his, and then I help him out doing like 3 different ones for him. And then I have customs to do. So between all of that, it keeps me busy, but it's a good busy, and it's something that I really enjoy. It's almost like if you love something like wrestling. I mean, I wouldn't be still doing wrestling if it was something that I didn't enjoy and love. And I know that you feel the same way. It's just something that's in your bones, and something about the soap is really relaxing. So I have to tell everybody, people go, oh, well, do you still wrestle or you just make soap? Well, I still do everything. So that's a good thing. And I've noticed that there is, I'm being asked to do some Comic Cons on the East Coast that are opening up. May 1st is, it's called the Big Apple Comic Con. So that's in New York on May 1st. So I'm probably going to do, I'll be vaccinated. For me, I know vaccination is not for everybody, but for me, if I want to work and continue to be safe, for me, it's important. So my second vaccination is April 2nd. So after the 16th, I should be good to go. So it's always safety first. of course, for me. And so I'll start doing the Comic Cons as they open up, as they do open up. So I'm excited about that. That's kind of, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it definitely sounds like you've been keeping busy. And I mean, when I think of the pandemic and I think soap, I think those two things just go hand in hand, right?
Right. When I was I do Facebook Lives on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and I do a little exercise, and then I might cut up a soap. But I was always saying, be safe, be well now, and wash your hands. So, I mean, that is just something that, I know people get tired of wearing their masks, but you know what I think about the mask? Before the pandemic, I used to see people on planes, some people wearing masks, and people would look at them like they're nuts or crazy. But, Alex, I might continue to wear my mask on the plane. You know what? I might keep it on. I might take it off for a little bit, put it back on, but I don't know. I'm not embarrassed to wear it. If we all remember in the beginning in March when they're saying you should wear it. Maybe you shouldn't wear. What should you do? Do you remember that time when they're like, should we wear the mask? Should we not wear the mask? And it was kind of weird to wear it, but I don't feel embarrassed I think safety again is the most important thing. So anyway, if anyone's interested in these soaps, because I know I'm going to be on here with you for a little bit, but my site is hollywoodbotanica.com, and that is with a K, hollywoodbotanica.com. And I see Billy here. Hi, Billy. I'm looking at the same time, I'm seeing some of I see Billy Smith there. Hi, Billy. How are you? He's like, yay, Chicago.
Yeah. Yes. You definitely have some fans on our chat here. That's awesome. And it's awesome that you're doing well. I'm so happy that you're staying safe and that you were able to not get sick throughout this whole time.
Right.
I mean, it's been something that's been crazy. And I know that a lot of us, whether that be, John and I, or anybody who watches the show, we're craving to get those events back, whether it is Comic-Con, whether it is in-person wrestling, like we all miss it. So I'm glad to hear though, that some Comic-Cons are starting to open up on the East Coast. That should be a good sign.
I know that when I got that message this morning, I was like, what day is May 1st? When am I going to be vaccinated? I'm so opening up. I mean, this is really cool. I'm excited. Yeah. I mean, we're going to get there, everybody. So be patient. My boyfriend plays in a band, and unfortunately for them, it's really slow. They didn't do anything last year. And, they might book a couple of small things, but the larger events that they do, that's not going to happen for a little while. He's tentatively, he plays with Ace Frehley, and tentatively they're supposed to go out August, and who knows, that could change. But for those guys, my heart goes out to them as well, because the musicians, and I know that's their livelihood. They haven't gone at it all. I've been really lucky to work a few things here and there. So yeah, keeping my head above water. And the soap business. I mean, who knew? I mean, I know I keep bringing it up, but
it's true.
Yeah, it's crazy. But I'm excited, and I know things will open up little by little. We will get there, and we will get back to normal. We just need to have a little patience. That's all.
Definitely.
Hi, Manny. I see you there. I'm saying hello to Manny.
Yeah, by all means. If anybody wants to say hi to Jeannie, she can see your comments. So definitely reach out. So we touched a little bit on wrestling, and I was mentioning NWA because they do have a pay-per-view coming up tomorrow. And I know when I spoke to you not that long ago, you were kind of toying with the idea of being involved with them at sub capacity. Right. Did that kind of seize all opposition, or?
That's a good question. The person that I was working with just recently passed, and that was Josephus. And he died how do I use the word? Unexpectedly. He had some pain in his ear, they said, and he just collapsed. And I don't know if that was an aneurysm or what, but my heart goes out to his family and his little boy. So I was in that capacity, I was working with him part-time here and there. So I don't know, I can ask Billy, and, I know they've made a little bit of changes here and there. So we'll see. I'm always up for something. So, we'll see as time goes by if I come back into the ring with them, because, when you haven't been in it in a long time, and then all of a sudden you are in that front of that live audience again, it's so, for me, it brings back so many good memories, and I can take a bump. I can still with the best of them, and just to feel that solid landing is so cool. And and I love playing the heel, obviously. That's my favorite thing. I can play a good, a baby face too, but it's not as fun as a heel.
Exactly.
And hearing the boos, because if you're getting booed, you're doing your job, and I love it.
Oh,
It's
sure.
great.
Yeah.
Hi, Jared. I'm saying hi to Jared. I see Jared here too.
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody, and we don't have a name here, but somebody says that they are a longtime fan of yours and got to meet you a couple of years ago at the Air Guitar World Championship.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Oh, wow.
That's awesome.
I judged it. That was a couple of years ago in Nashville, Tennessee at the Exit Inn. I was judging. I was one of the judges for the contest. Those people, those contestants are so good. I don't know if anyone's ever seen Air Guitar Pro, the way they do it. That's crazy. They were so good. I remember doing that when I was a kid, not even a kid. MTV wasn't in Glow yet. MTV was on, and I remember playing air guitar with my girlfriends, and we're picking up, don't laugh, and this is so embarrassing, we're picking up brooms and pretending we're playing air guitar. Hey, but that's where it starts. But anyway, hello to that person. I don't see their name here, so I'm not sure.
I don't either, but no, but it's funny that you mentioned Glow, because it was actually this week. I don't know what prompted me to do this, but I started rewatching the series on Netflix because I miss it. And I know that it wasn't too long after John and I had spoken to you that they announced that they were canceling the next season and the series altogether. And there was a petition that was started on change.org to try and get them to jumpstart the series again. So what was your initial reaction when you first heard that they were canceling it?
Well, my first reaction when they first started was, oh my God, this is so cool. My reaction when I found out they were canceling is like, oh, this sucks. This is not so cool. Mm-hmm. So I was a little bummed. I wanted them to at least do one more season, just to kind of give some closure maybe to those characters and the actors on that show. I felt bad. I had also shared that post and petition for them. But what an opportunity for them, So, I mean, all things come to an end, unfortunately, just like Glow. And when we get older, do we decide, do we stay in the business? Do we do something behind the scene in the business? For me, I'll always be in some form in entertainment, no matter what it is. And then the soap is fun too. So that gives me, I just feel very complete or very calming also when I do it. But yeah, I was, again, back to the Glow Netflix. That was a bummer, but I know that all those ladies on that show, will go on and hopefully do some bigger and better stuff with that background.
Yeah, absolutely. I got to speak to one of them at one point about one of the upcoming seasons before it aired. And you can tell that they were very enthusiastic about the series, and they were all new to wrestling. I think they knew about it, but it's quite something else to get into the ring and get in there and do it and be on camera and make it all look so real and put together.
Right.
So what do you think those women had to go through to learn from Chavo Guerrero in the ring?
So that is a great question, because not last May, but the May before, in 2019, we were doing another little wrestling convention in California, and Chavo was there. And I'd met him before at Comic-Con in Los Angeles. And I asked him a question about the training for the actresses, because remember, they were actresses, they were not wrestlers. And he told me something that I had no idea. He said, I did not want them to burn out on wrestling and freak out. So what we did is they would take only the scene that had the wrestling in it, and all he did was train them for that particular scene. Now that was a whole lot different than the way, you know, we were all trained, because we were trained Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and then it was every single day, boom, 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 boom. And I know that they went through hell too, but at least this is what Chavo said, that he would train them on the moves that they were going to do in that particular scene. So that would have made it a heck of a lot easier if you're only just doing, you know, 6 or 7 different, you know, moves. So yeah, and I'm like, oh, that explains it now. That would make it so much easier. Now I can concentrate on my lines and my acting. But yeah, what a combination though, to be able to have, you know, Chavo do that. We had Mondo, his uncle, he trained me, and the first other 11 girls, and we did that pilot. So to have Chavo trained these ladies, I was like blown away. I thought that's really cool that they're keeping it like that, you know, keeping it in the family. Yeah. I'm looking at, let me see. Jason says, I remember when the Glow Girls would have the music cameo before their match. Jason, those were the rap songs that we did back in the 80s. So yeah, and they would kind of concentrate on one person or cameo on one when we were having our matches. What else does I will stay soft. Thanks, Scott. Good to see you here, by the way. And Billy, thank you. You're awesome. Thanks for being here.
So if you had to guess, you know, we know that the series probably got canceled because of the pandemic, more or less. So when the pandemic kind of dies down, vaccines start to roll out, and Netflix starts to get all of their shows up and running again, do you see Glow starting back up?
You know, I haven't spoken with anybody. I just thought that they were done and moving on, but you never know. You never know. Maybe they will bring it back. And if they bring it back, that would be awesome. See, I don't have the end, so I couldn't tell you that story. Maybe I'll have to call Chavo and ask him. He always would. I'd always call him, when you guys starting out? Oh, cool. So that means you'll be out in summer or fall. You know, I'd always ask him that. So that's a good question for Chavo. I'll come back on like in about 6 months. Maybe. You know, Christmas time I'll come in. Yeah, I was gonna say,
if you do hear, let me know, because I'm all about that for sure.
Of course.
Well, Jeannie, it was so much fun having you on. I was so happy to get to catch up with you. But before you go, please let everybody know where they can go and find your soaps, where they can follow you on social media, and follow your soap business and journey.
You're sweet. Thank you first for having me on. And John Arezzi, if you're still watching, because I know you're traveling and you're in different places, thank you again. And we will see you after New York, or maybe in New York. For everybody who wants to follow me on Twitter, it's at Glow Hollywood. That's pretty simple, Glow Hollywood. The soaps are at HollywoodBotanica.com with a K. And the Instagram is official Glow Hollywood and Hollywood Botanica. So, you know, try it out. Alex, we will see you soon. Thank you so much for having me on. You look beautiful today.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jeannie. We'll talk soon.
Okay, bye, everybody. Thanks for having me on. Bye-bye.
So that was Jeannie Basone. As you guys know, love her. I think she was one of the pioneers that started this whole women's wrestling thing in a kind of new and different way. And if you guys have not checked out the Glow series, you definitely should. I think I'm on my 3rd time watching it, if I'm not mistaken. And there's 3 series. There's 3 seasons. Sorry. And it's very interesting. The acting is good. The wrestling is good. The minute I heard that Chavo Guerrero was involved in this series and getting a kind of an inside look at how the series is being run, it was amazing. So if you guys want to check it out, go check it out. And hopefully we will see it back very soon. So we don't have too much time left here, but I do see that Dawn is still hanging on. And I'm going to try and bring him on and see if he can give us a little more insight about his article on Carl Albano. Dawn, are you there with me? Let me see here. You're going to need to just, if you can unmute your mic, then I think we're going to be in business. Can you hear?
How's that?
And I can hear you perfectly. I can't see you. I can hear you.
Amazing. But we finally made it at the last hour. Let me say this. First of all, Captain Lou Albano, anybody that grew up in the 70s and the 80s, Captain Lou Albano was somebody. He was a big person, a big shot in the wrestling business, and he mattered when it came to the building the WWF into the WWE. I caught up with, I'm always fascinated about talking to family members, children, that to them, it's just dad. To everybody else, it's somebody special. I know Carl told me that when he was a child, he really wasn't into wrestling. It was something his dad did. Sometimes he'd be away for a while. And it wasn't until WrestleMania 1 is when he started to get interested in it because of the, it was such a big spectacle then. And he talked about walking down the streets in New York City when he'd be out with his dad and his mom. And he said places like that, people really start to gravitate to him. And remember, the good captain, long before he was Captain Albano, he was just despised by people. I mean, every time you looked at him, he was bleeding. He had some very fast matches with Chief Jay Strongbow, with Gorilla Monsoon, with whomever. He was somebody that everybody loved to hate. He was along with Freddie Blassie, the Grand Wizard. Anyway, Carl was telling me that, he has a insurance agency. And as I had read that when his grandfather retired, he was a doctor in Westchester County in New York. He wanted to open up an insurance agency for a second business. And Captain Lou, of course, wasn't going to be the guy behind the desk. And lo and behold, an uncle of his took his grandfather up on the offer. And then Carl ended up getting into the business that way. He's excited that when people call the office and they want to know if he's related to that guy, Lou Albano, and he finds that very amusing that after all these years, they still remember his dad. But it's fascinating that he's dad to him, to everybody else. He's somebody famous. And it's always good to find out how they were away from the wrestling ring.
Definitely. And if I have one question for you, what is your favorite memory of Captain Lou Albano?
Well, I touched upon it on the story. On the day of Madison Square Garden shows, everybody in the WWF would show up at one of the worst hotels in New York City, down the street from the Port Authority. I mean, it was a dump. And in fact, John Arezzi will, in his book, describes going into this hotel so wonderful. Even when you would go to the room where Gorilla Monsoon or Arnold Skolin or any of the people from the office would be, you couldn't, the keyhole had gum stuck in it, and it was like that forever. Well, Captain Lou would go when he would be there, and a bunch of us kids would be hanging around there waiting to get autographs. Mm-hmm. And Lou would always go into church. And it was even as a teenager, I thought, wow, this crazy man actually believes in God. He goes to church. Amazing. And so we would always wait at the bottom steps of the church. When Lou would come out, he'd make the sign of the cross, and then he would sign autographs of people. And that was just, for me, the most magnificent thing, because he was, as a child, I realized, hey, he's a real person too.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, I know when I read your article earlier this week, I was very excited to have you on to talk about it. And I was telling everybody before, he was one of the wrestlers, the managers in wrestling that I remember the most, right? When I go back and I look at everything. So it was very cool that you got to talk to his son, and it looks like that you had a good time writing it too.
I did. If you have a moment, I did want to ask me early on. I've been listening since the beginning of the show. You did talk about WWE Hall of Fame. They're going to have Molly Holly.
Yes.
Catch me up on this. What is her qualifications to be a Hall of Famer?
Well, I think they're taking everything into perspective. I think that they're trying to introduce more women into the Hall of Fame. I know that she is, quote unquote, for her time, she was one of the women that was a legit, wrestler who made a name for herself. So I think that's probably it. if I can take a guess, I think everything is all into perspective. I think if she had been in a different era, maybe we wouldn't see her, but I know that she did have some great matches. She was in some good feuds, so I wasn't really surprised by it.
I am, and the reason why I say that is I remember when Molly Holly was around, and I could think of two people. When I think of Hall of Famers, I think of people that made a difference, and I think right away I could think of two people, two women that would be right at the front of the line. And this I would ask anybody listening in to find video, read about these people. Vicki Williams, Debbie Combs. Those two girls were female wrestlers. They didn't just put on some trunks and parade around. These girls that you're talking about, a feud earlier, a hardcore feud. Yep. These people would have been in that already. They were doing that way back when. When I think of Molly Holly, I saw her in her prime, and it seems like many of these or select people that they select for the Hall of Fame was like, what did they really do? I mean, how many championships, or did they fill buildings? Or I sometimes I get a little maybe I'm out of place, but when I hear Molly Holly, I go, Debbie Combs would be at the front of the line. Vicki Williams would be at the front of the line. There was just so many people that I guess as time goes on, maybe they forget, and their memory is a little shorter.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely with you there. I think they need to be adding more women into the Hall of Fame that, as you say, are, legends in their own right. When I've watched a lot of the Hall of Fames, and I didn't quite agree with having Sunny in there either. That's just my personal opinion.
My gosh, me either. No way.
It is what it is, and it's completely their choice. But nonetheless, we will wait and see if there's any more women that will be inducted this year.
It's like anything. It's always, politics always has a lot to do with it. When you talk about Sunny, I would have Sunny not even in the building of Hall of Famers. I could think of two people that put in their years at the WWE, WWF. Special Delivery Jones, Victor Rivera. You talk about the 1970s and 1980s. Victor Rivera was a huge baby face and a huge heel, and his turn was huge. Those two people come to mind quicker. They had years and years with the organization. I know Johnny Rodz was in, and Johnny Rodz put all his time in. Well, S.D. Jones, Victor Rivera, Manny Soto, so many other names. These guys, but I think maybe the people today picking them don't have a clue of the history. They have more of the here and now than as opposed to, hey, let me do some reading about this person. Let me watch some video. Give me some names. Because if Sunny's in, oh my gosh, there are so many other people worthy of that.
Definitely. Well, I'm right there with you. We're running up against the clock here, but
thank you, Alex. I'm glad I finally got in with you.
I'm happy that we got to have you on, and everybody who wants to read your article can go visit it at slam.net as of today, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep,
right?
It's on there.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Thank you so much, Don.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that was Don Liable, who caught us at the tail end there to tell us about his article on Captain Lou Albano's son, Carl. Well, as I said, we're running up just against the clock here. I really want to take the last couple minutes here to thank all of you. It was a pleasure for me to be able to host this podcast for the last 2 weeks. I'm very happy that John entrusts me to take his spot while he's away. And if there is anybody that you think you'd want to hear on the podcast, I'm open to anything. I won't be doing the podcast and hosting it every single week, but for future guests, if you want to see anybody, please let me know, and I will do my best to make it happen. But you guys are so much fun to chat with. I love hearing all of your opinions on both the modern day stuff and the stuff from the past. Don't get me wrong, and I know I look young, I'm only 26, but I do know my wrestling history. So anything that you guys want to talk about, I'm here to chat about it with you and bring on any kind of interesting guests from both the past, the present, and maybe the future. And next week, John will join us. He'll be back. I know that he's been on the road with his nephew, Dominic. They were They were at spring training and it looked like they had a lot of fun. And I know that John was also busy in the studio with his book and recording his audiobook, which seems really cool. So maybe next week he'll tell us all about that. But for now, I will be back next week with the news. I will bring you any updates I hear about the WWE Hall of Fame inductees, about WrestleMania, any kind of new rumor going around. I will have it for you. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Have a great evening and stay safe and keep your family safe. And we're all going to get through this together. Until next weekend, have a great week, guys.